Two guys in the dark.
So I went to a place to see if they could fix my car. They told me maybe $1,500. Then I went to the local car dealership to see what they could do for me. My dad always went there for their repairs. As soon as I drove up, a salesman came running out to greet me. "How you doing?" Casual conversations. I told him about the problem that I had with the engine light, that I was moving out of state where I had to get it inspected, and I wanted to know what I could do for my car on a trade. He later told the other salesman. I jumped out of the car and said that I wanted a convertible. The reality is, after some casual conversation about my car and some interest in maybe a trade, he said, "What would you like to have?" "A convertible," I had said. Not that I intended to buy one. After about 7 hours in their building, leaving twice, only to be followed, by the way, I ended up with a car and owing $16,000. This was not my intention. I just came to look and try to get an estimate on what my car might be worth and see what they had that I could afford with cash. The last couple hours that I was there, I felt like I was in a blur. Back and forth, back and forth. Two guys sitting next to me trying to haggle with me. What would it take? What would it take? Let me play with the numbers. I'm trying to think in my head and being embarrassed with inner fear and wanting to look like I was strong. I guess that I never thought it was going to be a deal because they never asked for any kind of money. I didn't know that I was weakening with their sales tactics. I guess I buckled under the pressure of hearing what would it take. Let me play with the numbers and see how low I can get the payment. It was kind of uncomfortable, but I did not want to show that. It is possible to be weak on the inside and look strong on the outside. I can't explain why I kept on going. I did leave twice, and they followed me, talked me into coming back inside. I think, anyways. So as not to look stupid or weak, I never got what I could afford. A couple of times they tried to make it sound like I did. The numbers always seemed different than what they had said. I just wish they would have let me go. With the salesman and the manager, I guess that's who he was, let us lower the price, lower the payment, etc., over and over, good guy, bad guy type of thing. It just seemed like the salesman was my friend and trying to help me. He would say, "Let's try to get it for this price, $200 a month, 2 years maintenance contract," which I always thought meant free, and other kinds of stuff. I thought, what can it hurt? He would then go away and come back with the other guy. The other guy would shake my hand, and then I'd sit there for another hour. They sent me over to the finance guy to sign all of the papers. I kept on asking to see the actual price of the car. That was the last paper that I got to see, by the way. After quickly signing a dozen papers, and then it all stopped. Everything they just told me had nothing to do with the numbers that I saw on the thing that they wanted me to sign. I said never, and left, and then they came after me. "Come back in, we can make an amazing deal," along with all the casual conversation to calm me down. I still can't figure out why I didn't just leave. Conversation is a powerful thing. I wanted to find out what my car insurance would cost, so my salesman got the numbers, called them, and then gave all the information, then put me on the phone. The guy on the other end of the line said, "Is that the car that you were trying to buy?" I didn't answer him. He asked me again. I turned around and told the salesman, "He's asking me if I'm going to buy this car." "Who does that?" And then I hung up. He asked me what I said. I told him that I just didn't answer. I think this was my heart trying to tell my mind what to do. I really don't know. So he called back again, and after he had a person ready to ask the question, I said, "I guess." So very quietly, he had to ask me twice, "Are you buying this car?" "Yes," I said. I was afraid to say no. So this process started all over again. I think I was numb by then. "What do you want to pay for it?" So I wrote a crazy number. "Let me go check with the manager." Leaving me to go sit alone yet again. Back again. "Nope." He said, "We got to play with the numbers." I think I was getting worn down, and I didn't even know it. Then the manager came over again. He agreed. So once again, I was sent to the finance guy to sign a huge amount of papers. Again, not being able to see the most important piece of paper till the very end. I don't believe I truly realized how serious this all was. I kept telling them I really shouldn't spend any of my money I have in my CD, and I only make $800 a month plus $200 on my CD. Who's going to lend me money with that? I told them that I need the money for supplementing my income. The manager sat down and with his trusty pencil showed me how it would make such a difference in the interest that I would get. I didn't even know who was financing this. I didn't get a copy of the form. I called and they told me the name of the bank. I really can't understand any bank wanting to lend $17,000 to someone of my income level. I don't even remember signing a form for them to give away my information. Why didn't they give me a copy of any of this? Actually, all they knew was what I made for Social Security and interest. I guess I did tell them about my CD. I didn't sleep at all that night and realized in the middle of the night that they didn't even give me the check that they promised to pay 6 months of my car insurance. So I got in a car. I only drove once before, with no sleep, still reeling from the realization of what I had done. Drove up there, something that I will regret for a very long time. I was in a terrible state of mind. Blindly went through a school crossing zone while speeding. When the officer had stopped me, I couldn't even tell him what I had done. And after he told me, I was shocked. I had never done anything like that as long as I have lived. I'm being punished severely for all of that. They made me wait so long for the check. I was kicking myself hard for everything. I just wanted to get out of this whole deal, get my old car back. This one was bad news for me. I begged them to let me out of this contract. I knew this was something that I was going to regret for a very long time. I have no business in that car. I kept explaining to them about my low income and that I needed what I had to supplement my income. If only they hadn't followed me out of the door twice. Why didn't they just leave me alone? I went into this dealership. They had a used Ford that I wanted. I have an Olds to trade that I owed $2,000 on. The salesman told me that he would give me $3,500 for my trade, and I would buy the Ford for $300 a month. It sounded like just what I was looking for, so I had said okay. The next thing I knew, he wanted a deposit from me to make the deal official. I told him I was using my car as a down payment, and I didn't want to put any cash down. The salesman told me that if I didn't give him any money as a good faith deposit, that the deal was off. I should have left right then, but I told him okay. I gave him a check for $100. The salesman told me that he would hold it until I picked the car up. Then he would give me my check back. Before I left, I had to see the finance guy. He told me that I needed all kinds of insurance on the loan, like life and hospitalization, and said that I needed a warranty. He made it sound like the bank wouldn't finance me without all this stuff on the loan. He said the payment would only go up a little bit. I told him okay. I was supposed to pick up the car the very next day. I showed up the next day to pick up my car. The salesman was real friendly and running around getting my license plate switched over and everything. After waiting an hour to sign the papers, I finally got into the finance office. The finance guy had a whole stack of papers ready for me to sign. Well, the first thing that I noticed was the payments was now $413 a month. If this wasn't bad enough, this finance guy said that I needed $3,000 cash down. I told him, wait a minute. You're giving me $3,500 for my trade. That's my down payment. This guy told me that the $3,000 down was an addition to my trade, and my payment was $413 a month. I went nuts. I said, you guys are trying to stick it to me. How could the payments possibly be $413, especially when you're figuring it with an extra $3,000 down? He said to me he had nothing to do with it. The bank was making this call. I said, try another bank then. He said he already did, and this was the best deal that he could get for me. I told him forget the whole thing. You guys are just trying to screw me. I'm not standing for it. I said, give me back my $100 check, and I'm gone. This jerk said that he couldn't give it back because they had already deposited it. I couldn't believe this. I said the salesman told me the check was just for goodwill, and I will get it back when I picked up my car. He called the salesman in, and he said that I must have misunderstood him, that he never said that I would get the check back. I know what this guy had told me. He was flat out lying to me. I said I want to see the manager right now. The manager came in. I told him that I wanted my $100 back so that I could just leave. He asked me what the trouble was. I explained to him the whole mess. He said the salesman couldn't have told me that about the check because it's not their policy to do that. I was ready to scream. Then the sales manager asked me if I could take the car if he would get my payment a little bit lower. I said, if you can get my payments lower, why didn't you just give me a lower payment from the start? He said it looked to me like there was a mistake in the numbers. Went back to his office, redid all the numbers, came back and said that if I put $2,500 down plus my car, he can get the payments down to $393 a month. I said, just give me my $100 back so I can leave. Then he said, what if I can do the $393 a month with only $2,000 down? I was starting to feel like a ball in a pinball machine. I told him our original deal was $300 a month with just my trade down, and the finance guy said it might be a little higher for the insurance and warranty. The manager said no. I must have misunderstood all that. I guess I misunderstood everything in the dealership. Maybe I speak a different language than they do. I finally got so mad that I just got up and left. When I went outside, my car was nowhere to be found. The salesman said he had no idea where my car was. All of a sudden, he wanted nothing to do with me. I removed my plates from the Taurus using a coin, started searching for my car. I finally found it in the cleanup depot. They were already cleaning it up. I drove my car out of there with soap still on it, and as I was pulling out, I could see a couple of salesmen laughing at me. It took me over a week of calling the owner and the Better Business Bureau to finally get my $100 back. I'll never go near that place again. No wonder so many people are afraid to go into car dealerships. My wife and I were looking for a minivan. We had a Ford Taurus XL DOHC edition, loaded to trade. We owed $12,000 on the car. A local Ford, Mercury, Olds, Pontiac, Buick, GMC dealer was having a big tent event. They had all their cars in a field under a huge circus tent. Well, I was a sucker. Stopped by to see what they had. The salesman was young and seemed new at the job. I told him what I had. I wasn't in the Taurus, what my payoff was, and that I had bought the Ford from his dealership. I told him I wanted to be around $20,000 and asked him if he thought it might work on an Oldsmobile Silhouette with an MSRP of $28,000. He took me to a table, got me some information, and told me they couldn't commit until they saw the Taurus, which I told him was fine because I just wanted to know if we could come close. My sister had our Taurus and was an hour and a half away. I explained this to the salesman. He told me no problem. They didn't close up until 11 p.m. It was already 6. He came back to the table, told me that they would trade for $12,000. I was shocked. I asked him, so you mean you will take my Taurus, pay it off, and I'll write you a check for $12,000? He said yes. I asked him the exact same thing 3 more times. I told him that he had a deal. I'd be back later with that Taurus. He insisted that I take the van to go get the Taurus. I did, and on the way I stopped by to get my wife. We returned to the dealership around 9 p.m. The salesman changed the tags, showed us the features of the van, things like that. He finally came around and said that the finance manager was now free. So we drove the short distance to the finance manager's office in our new van. We sat down with him, started filling out the paperwork. By then it was just a little after 10 p.m., so we started signing. I noticed that there was nothing about the payoff of the Taurus, so I stopped and asked. He said, you have to take care of that. I was shocked. Told him that that wasn't the deal. They had to call the salesman back up. I told the salesman to face in front of everyone and to tell them what they told me about the deal. He said that I was right, but he just messed up. By then it was 10:30 p.m., and the bosses had already left. The salesman and the finance manager said that they weren't able to help us, so the deal fell through around 10:45 p.m. We drove the van back to the tent. They closed the doors and locked them. We drove off the lot towards the tent. When we got to the tent, they had turned off the lights, and the salesman had lost the keys to our Taurus, and the Taurus was nowhere to be found. He wanted me to take the van, come back in the morning. I told him that he had lied about the deal, and I wasn't leaving without my car. He looked around more, found the keys, and then went off to go get the car. He came back, changed the tags, got in his car, and left. We locked the keys in the van, and then left. I wrote a letter to the sales manager and the owner twice. I didn't hear from them, so I just wrote to the BBB. Then a few weeks later, they called with an apology and said that the salesman was new. I will definitely never buy from them again after that runaround. My dad was in the car business, so when I reached adulthood, I went into the car business as well. After several years of wholesaling cars and trucks, I decided to try a sales job in a dealership. We had a salesman who was a bit of a snake, to say the least. During his short time, he pulled several stunts. Perhaps the low of the low was a Buick Regal he sold to an elderly lady who had several must-haves for her new, used car. It had to have all the features, and a V8 engine. Of all the requirements, she was most adamant about the V8. The snake salesman found her the perfect car, except for it was a V6. Hearing her list of must-haves when she first entered the dealership, I was shocked to see her drive off in the V6 Regal that we had for sale. When I asked him about it, he just chalked it up to great salesmanship. However, a few weeks later, she showed up in her new car asking for that same salesman. When I told her he was out for the rest of the day, she wanted an explanation for the delay in the upgrade of her engine. When I inquired further, she produced a WEO form, which was for items that were not installed at the time of delivery. On the form was the entry of 2 additional cylinders for engine. He had promised the customer 2 additional cylinders were going to be added to her engine, but they were on back order. Needless to say, when he showed up the next day for work, he was quickly shown the door, and the elderly customer was put in a new car that met all of her requirements. Ultimately, a good deal for a customer, but a loser for the dealership. Of course, ridding ourselves of that salesman was worth the $3,000 loss, especially since it wasn't coming out of my pocket.
If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, like, and hit the bell for notifications on future videos, and become a stalker of the night. And I'll see you next time.